Alright, y'all. So today I want to talk about a film that I saw last week. That is 12 Years a Slave, a film that came out all the way back in 2013 and was a pretty big film back in the day, and basically tells the story of a freed African American man who was kidnapped, sold for money, and basically ended up basically being a slave in the old antebellum South before the Civil War happened. And he was 12 years a slave, just like the film said, until he eventually, the whole misunderstanding was sorted out and he became a freedman again. And he actually tried to publish, I think he did publish his findings and his experiences in a book up in the North. And, we also got a little bit of like what happened after. But this is also based on a true story. And my thoughts on this movie. I'm going to be honest with you. I was not ready for this movie when I was going into it. Now, this movie is really powerful, and I don't really think that this movie should be shown too much in classrooms, but I think maybe certain moments of it could, because this movie is very honest in its portrayal. Its direction is strong and powerful. Its performances are strong and striking. It's one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen in a long time, and it displays what American slavery was in the South. Because I feel like a movie like this, as hard as it can be to watch, I think is very important because people need to be reminded and to be shown how awful it was when other people, claimed or they owned supposedly other groups of people and they treated them like their property. They're not humans, they're slaves, they're property. And we get to see the depravity of human behavior in this movie. It is incredible to witness. And it's also even more shocking just because this is actually based on a true story, and it just captures all the raw and the violent intensity. I really think that people who seem to romanticize the causes of the Civil War, or especially people who believe in the lost cause mythology that the South really didn't care about slavery, that they succeeded because they wanted states' rights, and slavery wasn't that bad, I think in general are often forgotten, or at least they don't remember the real horror that was being a slave in the South before the Civil War. The real horror of American slavery. And this film, man, doesn't hold back anything. It shows you how disgusting it was and how these people were treated was absolutely horrendous. And it's crazy because it's even more shocking because this guy, the main character, was a freed black man. And he was just kidnapped and sold for money. It's one of those things that it is honestly horrifying to see happen to him. And it's horrifying to the audience just seeing how people are treated. For example, there's a really gut-wrenching moment of the movie where the main character is picked up and being sold at an auction. And slave auctions, man, whew. And, I knew how bad they were when I did some research in the history of America and Civil War, but seeing it play out like this is just horrendous. Like, the guy, I think Paul Giamatti plays, like, the seller of these human slaves, and the way he, like, touches them, the way he just slaps them, the way that he just treats these people, it's like their property. They're nothing more than dollar signs. For example, commonly a thing back in American slavery was if there was an African American family, they would not sell the family as a unit. They would sell the mom based on what she was worth and the children for what they were worth. And they did not care if they were a family. They were just separated because they were not humans. They were property. And there's a disgusting moment where the woman gets bought in this family in this scene. And then someone else buys the kids. And the mother's obviously distressed because she's going to be separated from her children. And the mother gets pulled away. The kid starts crying, and Paul Giamatti, who's the seller, kicks the little girl. We don't see it like on screen; we see it off screen. But it's hard to watch, man. And it's just a really horrifying thing. And like I said, it makes it all more real because this type of stuff happened. And you can arguably say that sure, they're dramatizing some things that actually happened. Maybe it wasn't that bad. I can really assure you it really did happen this way, and it was that disgusting. And honestly, what I like about this movie too is we do see the aspect of what people may say is the good part of slavery. We see that the main character's first owner is not that bad. He treats him more like a human, he listens to his advice, but due to circumstances that are basically involving the owner's helpers, who are deeply racist, who view these people as property, he gets involved in a situation where he whips the white guy who's been assaulting him and harassing him throughout the whole first part of the movie. And it's honestly a really glad. It's kind of one of those weird cathartic moments where it's like, yeah, fuck that white guy. But as a consequence, he goes to another owner, which is played by the same guy who plays Magneto in the later Fox X-Men movies. And man, oh man, this guy was, I really can't say too much in terms of like, he was just a horrifying dude. I mean, this type of guy, just like, for example, there's some really hard scenes to watch where he likes to wake up his slaves so they can dance in the middle of the night. His wife is deeply suspicious because the slave owner, the slave master, he is having sexual relations with a slave. And like, so you're a slave, so you don't have any rights, you don't have any say, you just have to let it happen. And it's horrendous, man. It's one of the most deeply disturbing parts of this movie. And the whole thing with him and the relationship that this main character has with another female slave character, it just shows you the depravity and what these people were treated like in American slavery. It is really hard to watch. And it's kind of one of those things that I think, like I said, as hard as this movie is, it's important that it was made. I think a lot of people who believe in the lost cause and think, all these like romanticizations about the causes of the Civil War, I think need to watch this movie. Because American slavery was not like things you saw in Gods and Generals where, oh, we talk to these slaves nicely and we treat them like they're a member of the family. No, these people were treated as property. They were touched. They were hit. Someone could just throw something at you out of violence and anger, and you can't do nothing back because you are a piece of property to them. You're nothing but dollar signs. And yeah, it's a very hard movie to watch. Very gut-wrenching, but also a very important movie. I think this movie is absolutely important to understand the horrors of American slavery. And I think in general, the story that was, sadly based on a true story about this guy who was accidentally kidnapped into slavery is a very powerful watch. And this whole story was very captivating, very interesting. I think also the acting is all really good all around. I also think the performances and the direction is really good. The directing style is really fantastic in this movie. They sometimes use the form of long takes in some shots of this movie, but I think it indicates how suffering and insane American slavery was. And I think it only adds to the gut-wrenching effect this movie has. And I think in general, I think I don't have really too many complaints about this movie. The only thing I could really say is that I'm trying to warn people, it's a very much a hard movie to watch, but an important one. So yeah, that's my kind of quick review off the top thoughts on 12 Years a Slave. I do highly recommend this movie, but it's definitely not for the wary. It is definitely a strong and hard to watch movie at points. But yeah, my quick thoughts on this movie. Hope you all have a good day and peace, y'all.